Happy New Year to all of you. Welcome to 2024's Unity South Central Region Business Mastermind. I am thrilled that the region has asked us to continue and sees the value of what we're doing. I want to start as I do most every year, asking you to please give your support both through your participation and through your financial support to the region, because they pay me to do this class, so that it doesn't cost you anything. And that's an important thing. It's an important thing. And I know they're really happy to offer this and several other services, and your financial support helps them to do that. So in whatever way is possible for you, I hope that you'll keep them on your giving list and support them in their good work. I know they just recently did a survey that was really important in the movement, and there are a number of resource classes that they offer in addition to mine. So you want to be sure and visit the Unity South Central Region website. Make sure that you are on the mailing list so that you know what the region is doing. And you may not know that our region is as big as it is. We cover 13 states. We're the largest region in the movement. And so what we do here makes a difference. We're kind of smack dab in the middle of the country. And the work of this region is really powerful and important in the Unity movement worldwide. So that makes me proud, even more proud, that we get to offer this business mastermind. I want to start this morning by showing you the schedule. So I'm going to share my screen and give you a little look at what we're going to do in 2024. Can you all see that? Yes? Okay. So I'm going to send this to you afterward. I won't spend a huge amount of time on it this morning, but I do want to let you know, first of all, we will continue to meet as we have over the past 2 years on the first and third Wednesday of the month at 11 o'clock Central, 10 o'clock Mountain Time for 1 hour. And we will continue to do a presentation, an actual class on the first week of the month, and then have an open Q&A on the third week of the month. What I would like to do with that open Q&A is encourage all participants to think a little more this year about the other things that are going on in your ministry that you have questions about or are confronting or are growing through, so that we make sure that when something does come up and you want a network of peers to discuss things with and brainstorm a little bit with, you always remember that on the third week of the month, you can bring those questions, ideas, and sharings to this space. In the past, we put a lot of focus on doing follow through on what's happened, what we learned in the first week, and we can continue to do that. But I just want to reinforce for you that Q&A is open time. And if you're facing something, you have a group of experienced peers here that you can bring a question to or bring a circumstance to and get some advice from. I also want to ask you, as we begin this year, to please consider sharing this schedule with people who you feel would benefit from the business mastermind. I think sometimes when there isn't a charge for things, people don't understand the value. And most of you who are here have been here every week for 2 years, which I think is the greatest testament to the fact that it's helpful for you. So it would be very helpful for us in growing this program for you to invite people who you feel might benefit from what we do. And you'll see I'm going to post some stuff. Those of you that are on ministers lists, I'm going to post some stuff on ministers lists as well. But like anything else, your words in other people's ears will mean more than anything else, because you know what you've gained here. So today we're going to work on grant writing techniques, and this is going to be a little bit of a fast and furious run through because I've prepared 5 pages of information for you. And it's a lot, and grant writing may be something that you haven't thought about before, but it's valuable. And now is the time of year to be thinking about grant writing that would affect 2025. so that you can, in the first quarter, do some writing, and then through the summer, be ready to research your grants that are available to support you. And by fall, which is kind of when the cycle of financing for the next year begins, that you could be ready to make some grant presentations. So you're going to get quite a bit of information today. February, we're going to talk about spiritual entrepreneurship and revenue models, which will really look at how you use your online capability and what kind of unique revenue models are out there, because we all know that relying solely on revenues from donations most of the time doesn't quite get us where we need to be. So we're going to look at some innovative revenue models that might be helpful for you in the next year. In March, we're going to work on ethical leadership and governance. This will be a real look at how you ethically interact as a board. So I want to remind you that you are welcome to invite your board presidents to any of these or all of these. We will request that UWM allow this to count for your continued education in ethics. So that will be in March. April, we're going to talk about eco-spirituality, which is how we relate with the planet and how we teach sustainability and talk about the eco-theological impact of presenting consciousness around our relationship with the planet that we live on. In April, that's April, May, we will work on digital innovation. I'm excited to work with you guys a little bit on how you can use things like AI and how it can help you in simplifying some of the ongoing processes that you have, both for your board and for your community. There's an awful lot out there, and it's a lot to take in at one time, and it can be very useful for you. I know that people are a little bit afraid of it, but mostly we're afraid because we don't understand it. So I want to talk to you a little bit about how you might be using AI and some of the other digital innovations that are available to you. And then in May, we're going to talk about mindfulness and mental wellness and how you work with your community to create a sense of balance around just that. We have so much information, so much information thrown at us that a lot of times we miss relating with one another, and we lose time to that, and we lose spiritual practice to that. And so how do we work with our communities to help them understand the importance of human interaction, and also to understand what the digital world can do for them and what is kind of illusionary around the digital world? How do we really work with our communities to help them have balance there? Because digital addiction is a real thing, and it's a mental health issue, and one that we as ministers need to be aware of and consider, both in terms of how we speak about it in our pulpit and also how we interact with it in our counseling work, in our pastoral counseling work. In July, we'll talk about creative expression and the arts, how we bring the arts more fully into our ministry. I'm excited about that one because there's just so much that we can do. And arts are experiential, and people need experiences right now. And then in September, we're going to talk about interfaith collaboration and who you work with, how you work with them, the kind of impact that you can have in your community, and the way it broadens your exposure in the community to be engaged in interfaith activities. A lot of times we show up at the meetings, but we don't really know how to take the next step and create something beyond just meeting space. So I want to talk about how you guys can both participate in interfaith activities and can also kind of step more fully into leadership in an interfaith capacity in your community. And then October, I want to talk about ceremonial practices. We kind of touch on them when we talk about planning your year. We kind of talk about ceremonies that can go on, but I want to talk about foundation points to ceremony. and take it a step deeper than we did this year. And this year we went a step deeper than last year. So it won't be a problem for new people coming in. They'll be able to use what we give them. But for those of you that have been with us for 2 years, this will be a step even deeper into ceremonial understanding and ceremonial planning. And then November, we're going to talk about how you plan your next year. We're going to really talk deep into the planning process. And I know that we get that in seminary. We get a look kind of at how to plan and how to think about the year. But for most of us, it's been a while since we were in seminary. And for some of us, we never have that. So especially those board members and people like that who are participating. So I want to talk about how you look at your year, how you plan your year in terms of music, in terms of guests, in terms of the outcome that you want for your community. What is the primary shift or transformation that you want to see in your community for the next year? And then December, I want to play a little bit. And I really want to get into a deep discussion about the future of spirituality, about what we can see in trends as we go into 2025, into the first, having completed the first quarter of this century. What has shifted? What do we expect to shift? What we do know is that the shifting and changing in society is happening more quickly than it ever has. So this kind of gives you a look at the year. Like I said, there are a couple classes, one that might meet our diversity requirement and one that might meet our ethics requirement with UWM. I'll work with Jean-Marie and we'll present those and see if we can get approval on them. If so, those will be built into your schedule this year, which I think will be helpful for all of us. And this, of course, still leaves the conversation open for the third week to bring up other things that come up that you don't anticipate, and to share and to talk and to get to work together and to build the kind of camaraderie and collaborative support that we have here. So I hope this looks interesting to you and exciting to you. It's exciting to me. And it gives you a little idea in advance. I will send it out to you today so that you know what's coming and you can make sure and block your schedule for the things that you absolutely don't want to miss. And if there's something that you look at and go, that's really not for me, then, come and see your friends anyway, because we'll miss you if you're not here. So that's a look at that. I'm going to jump out of the screen real quick. Any questions about that schedule for the year? Questions, comments? Okay. I always have to wait a minute and see if you're just being shy. All right.
I just wanted a copy of the schedule. You just answered that question because I want to email it on to the associates. Thank you.
Good. That'd be great. Thank you, Robert. I will absolutely send that out. And I will send out what I'm giving you today. Hi, Jackie. Nice to see you. I see you jumped in here when we were going through the schedule for next year. Welcome. We are going to talk about something that doesn't come up very often today. We're going to talk about grant writing. We're going to talk about grants in general. And there is so much information that when I tried to put this into slide presentation, which is our normal format, it's just too much. There's a lot you need to know about grants. So I have 5 pages of information. I'm going to throw it up here on the screen. It's not going to be beautiful, but we're going to move through it. Because I want you to see what's here, and then I want you to come back and really look at this. But before we do that, I want to talk about why. Why would grant funding be really important to you? And this is something that we've talked about kind of in a roundabout way. We've talked about the importance of getting your community to do something they can really put their signature on, something they really believe is their good work in the world, that as a community, they come together and they do something out in the world. They do something locally, maybe they do something nationally, maybe they do something internationally. So there might be an organization that you support. You might invite people to use your building for something. When I was at Unity in the Rockies, we built schools in Africa. We were able to work with people down there to fund a soccer team in a refugee camp, which seems like, can't you find something more impactful? But what can be more impactful when people are in trauma than to help children to play and make friends and smile and have some fun? So there are lots of different things, and we'll talk about some of them. Maybe you want to be engaged in a literacy program. Maybe homelessness is an issue in your community. But this is what happens when you get your community engaged in something and you actually get them involved in making a difference. No matter the size of that difference, you empower them and move them from hopelessness and apathy into confidence and action. And in today's world, hopelessness and apathy is a real thing. It's very easy for us to sit back and feel like we can't do anything. And what impact can we really have on what's going on in Gaza right now? Not very much. We have minimal impact. What impact can we have on homelessness? If we sit around and talk about it as though we can have none, we will have none. There are things that we can do in our community to make a difference. And one of the most important things is to understand we can't do everything. It takes putting your focus in a particular area. And once you put your focus in a particular area and you begin to build goals and objectives, then you are able to design a program. And that program, because it's community oriented, will naturally fit someone's grant requirements. So you can design the program, go out and find out who would actually fund it, and actually increase the financial health of your community by getting engaged and have a better story to tell about what you're doing. Because people want to be part of something that feels hopeful. So when your community members can go outside to their friends and say, I just love being at my church. Not only do I love the message and I love the community, but we're really making a difference in the world. That's interesting to people, especially younger generations. Our younger generations are very committed to involving themselves in organizations that are addressing world problems. It's what they look for. And if we want to grow the younger end of our demographics, then it's important for us to look at how we can do that. And this is a bigger thinking, isn't it? Like a lot of our thinking day to day about church is taking care of the building, paying the bills, making sure Sunday is good, painting something or fixing something that's broken, mowing the lawn. There's lots of little things, and we can be completely immersed in all of that. But we also have at our fingertips as ministers, a community at the ready. So I ask you to consider what you're preparing your community for when you talk to them every week. What is the purpose of this if it's not to give them tools to go out and make the world a better place? So when we fail to give them a way to do that, we kind of run in the same circle. And after a while, that circle starts to lose momentum. So when we can engage them in real useful activity, not only do we make the world better, we make their lives better. It's very powerful stuff. And a lot of what stops us is looking at it and saying, I don't have the funding for that. I don't have the money to put that together. I don't know how that would work. So I want to look today at grant funding, just so you have a little information. And as I said, you will have the opportunity to look through this, and there's a ton of information here, and I'm going to send it out to you. You'll have the opportunity to review it, and I'm going to go right up to the top, but we're going to run through this so that you understand what's in here. And then I'm going to ask you to please look at it quickly when it comes to you. make a copy of it, put it somewhere where you can find it, because it will percolate in the back of your mind what you might be able to do. There is a funding cycle. This is a good time of year to be in conversation about what you might want to do. Then you'll need to do some research, and you'll need to prepare documents and application information. And through the summer and by early fall, September is really kind of the end of that. Foundations are receiving information and making decisions about where their funding will go for 2025. So this is not something that you have to do overnight. This is a long-term look at what you might launch in 2025 and who might help you fund it, and how you would go about the process of doing this work if you want to take this on. So there's lots of opportunity here. So why consider grants? We just talked about it, but I'll go through these simple things. Your financial needs and goals. It brings money into your community. Finding yours, these are considerations, okay? You want to find things that are aligned with what your community cares about, so that your eligibility is there and your community is behind them. And you want to also consider what kind of capacity is necessary to manage a grant, because once you get the grant, you have to keep track of what you've done. And at the end of the year, you have to do a grant report. And that means that every time you're engaged in a grant opportunity, in a grant activity, you're going to want to take pictures, and you're going to want to write a couple paragraphs of what you've done. You're going to want to measure the number of people that were impacted, so that at the end of the year, you can provide that to your grantor, and they can see the good that was done with the money that you gave them. And when you do that, it helps them very naturally to want to fund you the next year. This is going to be your September 2026 report. When you ask them to fund you again for 2026, you're going to give them at the end of 2025, a report that says, here's everything we did. Jump on board. So you would have to block time in your schedule as the minister, or work with your administrator to make sure that a little bit of time is allotted to managing that grant process, that reporting process. This gives you a diversified funding resource. You know, right now, we just said it, we need more than just donations to grow our churches. Our spiritual communities require additional sources of funding to be able to do the good work that we're capable of doing. I'll tell you the other good thing that comes from this, and people don't realize it. People don't realize that churches commit billions of dollars to community service every year. Dollars in man hours, dollars in space, dollars in promotion. When you think about all the AA meetings that are at churches, all the backpacks we fill every year, all the community work that's done, when you get pushback in your community for why churches don't pay taxes, one of the most important things that we do is support the community. What we would give in back to the government will not be used to address homelessness or addiction, or in a lot of the mental health kind of issues that we're up against in our society. It doesn't get absorbed that way. There just are not that many government funded programs. But what churches do is really important in that regard. And when people push back on you about why you don't have to pay taxes and everybody else does, do you have programs that show how you communicate, that show what you do, how you contribute? Do you have programs in your community that you can point to and say, this is why, this is what we do that won't necessarily be done if we are not doing it? The combined effort of churches and spiritual centers and synagogues and mosques across the United States alone is phenomenal. Billions, not millions, billions of dollars that fund everything from tiny AA groups to hospitals. So it's important for you to look at diversifying your funds and what that means about you as a community. The community impact we talked about inside your building, there is community impact obviously outside your building. You're making a difference where you live. And as much as this is not the reason we do it, one of the most important things that will grow your community is for people to understand your community has value, that your community is doing something worthwhile. People will be interested and excited by that. Building partnerships gives you the reach into other people's communities and them reach into your communities. The organizations that you work with and the collaborations that you create will grow you in size, will grow you in spiritual nourishment, will grow you in impact in your city, and will grow hope in your community. And one of the considerations for you as you go through this and look at organizations is to make sure that you understand the ethical and theological alignments that you put in place. So for example, some people in our church, in our greater unity movement have bingo games. Some people are fine with that, some are not. So you have to look at what you're engaged in, what your community activities are, and see if they're ecologically and ethically and theologically aligned with what you believe. And choose things that fit you well. So all of this you can read more about. What I've given you here are 10 steps to writing a grant proposal. Really important steps for how this gets done. These are things that we can talk about when you get to the point where you're ready to write. What does it mean to identify your needs and objectives? How do you research potential funders? I'll show you lots of ways. There are lots of ways to research them. There are national organizations that will give you a list of everybody that meets your particular, that funds your particular purpose. You have to write your grant for the guidelines that are given to you. Sometimes people write a generic form. You don't want to do that. To be successful in grant writing, your grant needs to be written to the guidelines of the organization that's asking you to apply. Develop a plan or proposal. Most people now use a PowerPoint or presentation of that size, that kind, which gives you a different idea about how you have to be concise and clear. It's very different to have a whole page of paper or a little box to write in. So how you write your proposal is important. Gathering necessary information, you have to have a profit and loss statement for your organization. And most of you, I believe, have that. We've talked about budgeting and the importance of how you keep records. If you're working in QuickBooks, you can pull a profit and loss statement easily. It just pulls right out. It's just a report. If you use some other form of bookkeeping, it may require a little bit more work, but they will require a look at your profit and loss. You have to have a clear budget for your program. If you're going to address homelessness, you have to be able to say how you're going to do it and what it's going to take to do your work. How much money do you need to do what you're going to do? And then you'll review and edit, submit the proposal, and your follow-up, step number 10 is going to be your most important step. Even though all the rest of them sound really important, your most important step is going to be staying in touch with the organization, finding out if they got everything. Did you receive everything I sent? Was there anything we were missing? Does this look like the kind of application that your board would take seriously? Is there anything more that I can do that would improve our opportunity to be funded? Those kinds of questions are really good questions. And you can call and talk with someone or send notes by email, but you want to stay visible. Once your application gets in, you want to stay at the top of the pile. You don't want your name to slide 15 down. You want to continually be bringing their attention back to you and bringing yourself back to the top of the pile so that they know that you're really serious about the work you're doing. And this isn't a one-time thing, like you want to make something big happen. because those organizations want their money to be used by people who are going to use it to do what they say they're going to do. And they want to see that you're dedicated and you're committed to it. So just in case you were wondering about kind of a look at how much grant funding is actually out there, I did a little research yesterday, and I can tell you that in 2021, $1.5 billion, not million, $1.5 billion went to fund church programs across the United States alone. And those looking at those grant amounts, they start as low as about $5,000 or $6,000 and push up towards 200,000, which is not a huge amount of money. 200,000 in our budget is a lot of money. But when you think about getting to $1.5 billion, even at $200,000, that's a lot of grants. That's a tremendous amount of money that is being used by spiritual communities across the United States to make the world better. And there's a lot of potential out there. So what are the kind of things that might be funded? Homelessness and housing, food scarcity, big problem with food scarcity right now. Food scarcity is a good partnership opportunity. Find an organization that is working in that field and partner with them. Youth programming, that can be lots of different kinds of initiatives, after school programming, mentorship, tutoring, all kinds of things. Senior care and elderly support. And who is in a better place to offer senior care and elderly support than we are? We do that every day already, don't we? We just don't call it that. We don't hold meetings or set up a schedule that is, here's how you set up your estate. And here's how you can look at your wellness care. And here's what you might need to do to stay connected, because loneliness is a big problem. Like this would serve our communities, even if we didn't go out and look for grant funding for it. There are a lot of unique programs for senior care and a lot of unique needs for seniors that could be addressed through programs, through senior care and elderly support programs. And good partnerships that you can come together with other organizations and establish. Education and literacy is always real in our communities. It's always a real need. Healthcare services for people who cannot afford them in a country that makes it really hard to get them. Are there clinics and organizations that you can partner with? And how could you help? It could be as simple as, we will give you a volunteer who will work every week at your front desk. What can you do? How would it help the members of your community if they could give an hour or two somewhere? Now, I hear it. I can't tell you whose head it's in, but I hear it back here. I can't even get them to volunteer in my church. How am I going to get them? Thank you, Brenda. How am I going to get them to volunteer somewhere else? It's different. I promise you, it's different. When they feel like they're making a difference in your church community, they're serving themselves. This is what I do for my community. I go to church for me, and I'm serving, really, ultimately, I'm serving myself, my friends, my. It's something different when you're working outside, and it's not for me. It's to make the world better. And you will have a different conversation about it, because you will talk about the importance of making the world a better place, that we don't just come to Unity to learn this stuff, that we go outside our doors and we take our positivity, we take our consciousness, our awakened consciousness, we take our commitment to being the hands and heart of the indwelling God out into the world. It gives reason for all of the things that you teach anyway. It helps them understand that all of this stuff is with purpose and that they're being prepared. They didn't walk in your doors by accident. They walked in your doors to become people who could make the world a better place. And so the way that you talk to them about that is what will effectively help them to go out and volunteer an hour a week, a couple of hours a week. It's in your conversation, and it really is a very different thing you're asking them to do. Addiction and recovery. Do you have an AA meeting in your building? You should, if it's at all possible, because not only will you have outsiders who are coming in for it, but you'll have people inside who need it. Is there an addiction meeting? Is there something that addresses any mental health issue? Do you have a meeting for young mothers that you can promote out into the community? Do you have a commitment to helping young mothers who are trying to raise kids in a world that is really challenging? What's your commitment? Job training and employment services, big deal. Even there's an organization here in town that does, when we did some partnering with them when I was the minister at the church here, they collect suits and dress clothing, business clothing, so that mothers who are re-entering the workforce and don't have the money to go out and buy a couple of suits can go there and get like 3 to 5 outfits for their new job, because they've spent all their money raising kids. They haven't been working. They don't have the money for that. So we both raised funds for that and contributed clothing. They received clothing, men's suits, women's suits, business clothing, to help people re-enter the workforce. Community development, neighborhood development, work in your park, work on a trail. We've done some of that here, working on a new trail. That was a really fun day. Environmental stewardship, immigrant and refugee support is a big deal, because when we're shipping busloads of immigrants into the United States right now, and we're finding ways to help people. It's really easy to say what's happening in Gaza or Ukraine. Wow, there are millions of people without a place to live. There are millions of people entering on our southern border without a place to live. There are 1,000 reasons that's happening around the world. But people are coming into the United States. What if your church adopted one family that you decided to help support, that could come to your church and be part of a community, that you would help figure out the system for how you get a job, how you find childcare, how you find a handyman to fix what's broken on your house, some help with rent while they get established in a job. If you want to talk about what's wrong out there, figure out what you can do here, because it will change your community to help one family, one individual. Prison and reentry programs, there is a massive need for that. One of the things that we have here in Colorado Springs is that families who have people in prison don't have the money to drive to the nearest prison. So we have worked in an interfaith collaboration to try and get buses, rent buses together, with some churches paying for buses and some churches paying for gas and some churches serving as locations, so that people can get picked up in a certain place, ride the bus, go have their visitation and come back a couple times a month. Families who wouldn't get to see their family members otherwise, which addresses both the family and the person who's incarcerated. So there are so many things that can be done. Disaster relief and emergency services, always important. We're sending stuff to where there was a hurricane, a flood, whatever. But having a plan for that. If you want to get a grant for it, saying we have a disaster relief program that we hold in place, and this is what we do, this is what it looks like, and here's how we do it. Domestic violence and abuse support, we can never have enough help with that. Human trafficking, disability services, health and wellness programs, interfaith and ecumenical outreach is, we'll talk about this again when we come to interfaith on our schedule. But when churches work together, they are immensely powerful. And if you're going into a church partnership, if you share your building with someone, it's a great opportunity for you guys to look at how you can work together, what can happen, or if someone is sharing your building with you. Also, if you're, even if they're not renting the building all the time, if there are organizations that use your building, like we had a Buddhist organization that did meditation once a week, talk with those organizations and find out what they're involved in. Maybe there's something you can collaborate on. Global missions and international aid, there are thousands of ways to get involved, and millions of people in need right now. So those are 20 ideas. Those are 20 different areas you can take to your community and go, does any of this sound appealing? Like, what of this do we really care enough about that we want to create our signature program that we do? And we want to go see if we can get it funded so that we can have real impact. Like I said, it's a big process. These are organizations for those 20 topics I just gave you. These are organizations that you can already go to that are funding these areas. So here are some suggestions for partnerships. You can go right to these organizations and find out, look at their website, see what they're doing, and see how you can get involved in what they're engaged in. So that gives you a start. These are organizations that will fund these topics. And there may be easy ways for you to step in. And then how much to ask for really comes down to what your project is and what you want to accomplish. So I've given you some outline that you can look at. You know, you have to be able to really budget. It has to be a real plan. And you have to look at the guidelines for that grantor, because some grantors will say we give our top giving is $5,000. You don't want to ask them for 20. They're not going to fund it. And they're going to think that they can help you, but they can be one of 4 grantors that fund you for $5,000. And you would just need to say your $5,000 will be used for this. You can look up their funding histories. You can do that on all the organizations I've just given you. And you can look at your total project cost and figure out what aspects you need funded. Maybe you need a manager. A lot of times what happens is that grantors won't fund administration of the work, but they will fund everything else. So when you put your budget together, you want to look at how much paper you're going to use, how much toner you're going to use, how much gas you're going to use, how all of those things. Don't start by saying we need a $10,000 a year person to run this program. What you want to do is put everything in place and figure that your administrative cost will be yours. So you're going to administrate through volunteers and through currently paid employees so that you don't have to add a lot. Avoid underestimating. Ask for what you really need. Don't people go, well, we could use 5, but I'll ask for 3. No, if you need 5, you need to ask for 5. And you need to show why you need it. Because you don't want to start a program that's going to put strain on your community. You want to start a program that's well funded and you can be successful at. In-kind contributions are something you can put in. People will donate things that you need. You can go out and say, we're doing this program. We're doing tutoring. We have a lot of retired teachers and we want to do a tutoring program for high school students. We need an office close to the high school. And you can find a business organization or one of those collaborative workspaces that will donate an office so that you have a place to meet. Be specific, be clear, have a breakdown, and consult with experienced individuals in that area. That's why collaboration is so useful. And then finally, these are just some examples, like I said, of in this particular case, this is a very Christian-oriented organization. They funded 25 workshop grants last year in 2021, between 6,700 and 18,000. These are just to show you anything from, these are AV grants, 2,000 to 20,000. There are grants in Unity Worldwide Ministries. Unity Worldwide Ministries has grant opportunities, has funds set aside to give grants for innovative workshops and innovative work in the community. Most of us never go there because we think of those as emergency funds, but they're really there with the opportunity for us to make a difference in the world. And they fund those things because it's good for everybody. It's good for Unity Worldwide Ministries to show how they use their money. It's good for us as communities to see that some of the money that we donate gets used for the community, for the world. And for the growth of the Unity movement. And it's good for our communities to see what having a Unity church in their community means, why it matters. So this is a ton of information, guys, and we went through it in an hour. I could take any one section of this and we could go through this item by item, and I could probably spend 1 hour on every page easily. But it's a lot of information for you to take in, and we can come back to this if you decide as an organization that you want to develop something that's grant worthy and you want to do something meaningful, then get back in touch with me and let me know. And I'm happy to have more in-depth conversation with you personally and kind of, walk alongside you through your processes, because there's tremendous potential. And in this time of looking at potential, which is what New Year's is, I want you to be thinking big for your ministry. I want you to step out of, you will have fun if you pull yourself out of the minutia. You'll be surprised how much of the minutia will actually take care of itself when you have something bigger to put your heart behind. And you'll be surprised how it enlivens your community to have something big that actually works and makes a difference. Okay? So full day for today. Happy New Year. I will send this out to you. I am deeply, deeply grateful for you. Are there any questions I can answer for you before we call it a day?
I'll just add one comment that your comment in the beginning about the minutia of taking care of buildings and budgets and all, we've just come through this property sale, and I reflect back on the time that it's taken to handle this property, and I'm optimistic, and I even had this discussion with Jean Marie, he and I are meeting tomorrow, but optimistic that what you're talking about here, maybe the time has come for us here to do more, because really we do very little right now outside the four walls. And maybe there's more bandwidth up here in all of our minds and to take on something besides survival.
I'm so glad that you said that, Bill, and I'm so glad that you said that, because I want to remind you of something we talked about. We talked about seasons, and I want to remind you that we kind of go into this period and go, yeah, we're gonna do our resolutions and we're gonna do something great in the year, but we're in winter.
Yeah.
And you just went through a big move. People just went through the holidays. They're tired right now. We refer to this a lot of times in this group as the dream time, from now and really until the spring.
Mm.
In the dreaming time, it's not a time to make decisions. It's a time to dream, to envision, to consider, to ask people to just let their hearts talk about what they would, if they could, what would be fun. And then after you get to the part where to the point at the equinox, where daylight is longer than night, where your day is really, you're in daytime, you'll find that people now are ready to do things, because the sun has real relationship with our bodies. And you'll notice it in yourself. There's a period when the light gets strong enough where the light comes up in the morning and you're ready to get out of bed. And right now it's cold out and it's dark and we don't want to get out of bed. We're not ready yet. We want to wait 10 more minutes, right? So this is a time to start the conversation as a dream. If we could just dream into something new, what would this look like? What could we do? How much would we like to do? Would we like to help just one family, or would we like to help more? Would we like to put together a program for seniors and invite seniors in the community, or maybe partner with other churches to do this. This is a time to be in conversation with your leadership, for sure, with your board, and get your board dreaming. And then around springtime, you'll be ready to name a project and start researching what's available in funding and thinking about what you would need. And by summer, you'll be ready to start putting things on paper. And by fall, you'll be ready to start submitting things. But it's important to give yourself the time, and the being in the question is always the point of power. And this question is, what would we like to do? What would feel really good to our community? What kind of contribution could we make in the world that would really feel good to us? Stay in that question as long as people are still willing to circulate around it, because the longer you're in the question, the more good ideas that will come forward.
Yeah.
Anything else, guys? Okay, it's a lot to think about. I know that I gave you a ton of information, but I couldn't give you any one piece of this without giving you all of it, because you need to be able to see the fuller picture. And I realize that not everybody is in a place where their community would be ready. Some of you are trying to figure out how you're going to keep the doors open on Sunday. I realize that. But even if it's a small thing, sometimes something like this can be how you keep the doors open, because people get enthused about it and get behind it. And I wanted to start the year with that potential and give you something to consider. So when we're done here today, I'll send out the schedule to you, and I will send out everything you just looked at. And then just remember, I'm walking with you. I'm here. If you hit something, you go, I don't really understand what this means, or I don't really know how to do this, or, oh my gosh, Ariana, I opened a can of worms. I've got 27 ideas and I can't decide on one. How do we navigate those waters? Then reach out to me and we'll talk through that, and we'll come up with a strategy. There's a way to do that. I just want you to know that I'm here to help you, as always. And so grateful to see all of you in the new year. Grateful to spend this time with you. Looking forward to what we learned together this year. So have an awesome day. Happy New Year. And I'll see you in a couple of weeks.